Hello, everybody. I am Professor Alexander, and this is Chapter 1, Lecture 1 on human sexuality, the importance of it, the field, the study of human sexuality. I'm going to be reminding you all throughout the course when I lecture, as I'm speaking, take notes. And that's the amazing thing about video, right? Is you could always pause it, you could always replay it, you could always go back and reference something that went too fast. So use this opportunity, use your note-taking strategies. The better notes you take as you are writing, you are actually retaining that information. So we are going to go ahead and launch into Chapter 1. There are going to be times throughout this course, throughout these lectures, where you're going to see various charts. Use that opportunity to pause the video so you can look at the diagram or the chart in front of you so you can take in that information. All right. So without further ado, we are going to launch into Chapter 1, which deals with the studying of human sexuality. Sexuality in popular culture and the media, and sexuality across cultures and times, societal norms, and sexuality. We're also going to dive in value system, your psychological schema, so on and so forth. So studying human sexuality today, sexuality often seems to surround and embed itself into all aspects of our lives, right? So there are multiple perspectives on human sexuality, surrounded by taboos, fears, prejudices, and hypocrisy, linked with intimacy and pleasure, but also shame, guilt, and discomfort. There is no single behavior, attitude, value, or sexual norm that encompasses sexuality in contemporary society. Nothing, no value system or judgment can directly impact all cultures and all aspects of human sexuality. You're going to be hearing the term of sexual variance throughout this quarter, right? So sexuality in popular culture and the media. Sexuality is influenced and shaped by popular culture, especially the mass media. Presents myriad images of what it means to be sexual, depending on your culture, the church that you attended as a kid, the family you grew up in, the neighborhood you grew up in, right? This is your schema and how you look at life. So media portrayals of sexuality, adults spend more time engaging with media than any other activity. Various media present the social context of sexuality, what behaviors are appropriate, with whom they are appropriate, why they are appropriate. Aspects of sexuality not portrayed in the media may be just as important as what is portrayed in the media. And we're going to take a deep dive into that throughout this quarter. But understanding media's prominence is essential, right? Because we are bombarded by images on the internet, in the music industry, magazines, tabloids, and books, both men's magazines and women's magazines, advertising in all media. Self-objectification is evaluating oneself based on appearance. Sexualization is a form of sexism that narrows the frame of a person's worth and value, right? So whenever we see a chart, feel free to pause, take time, take notes, reflect. Figure 1 is average time spent per day with media by persons in the United States ages 18 and over. Adults age 18 and over spend more time engaging with the media than in any other activity, an average of 12 hours per day, 7 days per week. So you see digital, that's leading the league with 6 hours and a half, TV 3 hours and a half, radio 1 hour, 20 minutes, a newspaper and magazine, roughly 11 minutes, 9 minutes. That's because these are kind of fading out. More and more people go to the internet or TV for information, right? So television and digital media, let's talk about it. So while TV and digital media has been increasing, so has the number of sexual references in programming. Sexualized images are often the dominant way that young people learn about sex. Federal commissions, FCC, Federal Commissions Communication, also known as the FCC, is not clear about what is and not permissible. Decency standards are looser between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. You'll find more raunchy material, more sexually explicit material between those hours. When we talk about music and video game, music videos play to the ear and the eye. Artists have brought energy, sexuality, individualism. To the young music audience, I'm thinking about Rihanna, Beyonce, Shakira, right? A long list. At the same time, music videos have objectified and degraded women by focusing strictly on their sexuality, which tends to happen in rock and rap, right? So video games often promote sexist and violent attitude towards women, and men are often shown as unrealistic, violent figures. Just think about the Call of Duty, or think about Grand Theft Auto, GTA, Grand Theft Auto, which was popular even when I was in college, all the way still up till now. The trend is changing where they're trying to bring a little bit more awareness in music videos and in mass media, and even video games are trying to take away that sexually explicit material and violence. Okay, another chart. Figure 2, amount of time of daily media use by age, 2019. So we have the categories broken down to all adults, ages 18 to 34, ages 35 to 49, age 50 to 64. Orange is the app on a tablet, blue is app on a smartphone, right? Dark orange is internet on a computer. That bluish purple is TV connected devices, DVD. Purple is radio. Green is live TVs. Take time, take notes, pause, and reflect. So feature-length films. Motion pictures have always dealt with sexuality. Movies are similar to TV in whether and how they portray the consequences of unprotected sex, right? So love in dramas and comedies is often stereotypical and idealized, right? There's not a whole lot of education that's taking place, right? Because they know that sex sells and they know that people tune in to view sexual content. Among young adults, increased movie viewing correlates with idealized expectations about romance and intimacy. It is important to have authentic personal experiences and honesty about the normal difficulties of sex and relationships. Relationships come with complications, communication issues, right? And also talking about the importance of protection, which oftentimes can be left out, right? Protection during a sexual act. So when we talk about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people in film and television, the LGBTQ plus community individuals are slowly being integrated into mainstream films and television, often defined by their sexual orientation, right? So they will have the gay men and lesbian women are stereotypes. So the gay man is ultra feminine, and the lesbian woman is takes on more masculine qualities. So the coming out stories increasingly deal with younger characters, right? Queer baiting is a term that means a media where the creators integrate homoeroticism to lure same-sex and liberal audiences, but never fully include actual representation. They don't do a deep dive in what it means to be homosexual and some of the actual things that the LGBTQ plus community are really dealing with in real life, in real time. So when we talk about online social networks, internet has changed the ways we communicate and carry on interpersonal relationships. Users can easily obtain and distribute sexual information, right? Sending pictures, sending nudes, sexting. Social networking provides opportunities to display identities, including sexual orientation. Social networking can also be a place of relationship drama, right? You liked somebody else's picture and you didn't like mine, or you didn't get a chance to look at my post, right? But you're always looking at somebody else's post. So the internet contributes to shaping sexual culture. Online dating is something that has happened within the last 10 to 15 years, right? When our grandparents didn't have access, and sometimes even our parents didn't have access to online dating, right? The Plenty of Fish, the eHarmony, right? The Tinders, the Grinders, sexual health sites, including those with bad information. Some individuals have difficulties linked to porn consumption. All right, too much porn. Too much porn is not a good thing because of desensitization. Figure 3, percentage of internet users in the United States who have used online dating sites or mobile apps as of 2017 by age group. right? Broken down 18 to 29, 30 to 59, 60 plus. Yes, currently is orange. Violet is yes, previously. Purple is no, never. Pause. Take time, take notes, reflect. Online social networks, sexting, sending or receiving suggestive or explicit texts, photos, or video messages. Numerous purposes, including sexual self-expression, experimentation, self-definition, and education. Privacy is of increasing concern. Can be trafficked to others, can hurt one's reputation, career, self-esteem, and relationships. High levels of media use has health consequences. Among the young, associated with academic problems, sleep deprivation, obesity, risky behaviors, and more. Sexuality across cultures and times. What we see as natural may be viewed as unnatural in other cultures, right? So we're going to use the term sexual variation. Example is kissing to the Mihinaku of the Amazon rainforest, right? Culture molds and shapes sexual interests, incitements, or inclinations to act sexually. Sexual interests. Humans give diverse shapes and meanings to sexuality. The Manjai of Polynesia emphasized both the pleasurable and procreative aspects of sex at a very young age. The New Guinea Dani, sex is relatively unimportant aspect of life. It is merely a means of procreation, whereas the Manjai, they explore sexuality very early in age, right? And there is a lot of variation in terms of same sex at a young age among the Manjaya, also with the opposite sex, teaching one how to become sexually expressive or to climax, right? The New Guinea, they didn't view it that way, right? They more so looked at it as a way to bring another human being into the world. Then we look at the white middle class during the Victorian era, Victorian Americans, which happened during the 19th century. They believed any sexual desire experienced by women was the desire to have children. And any woman that had a desire outside of wanting to have children, they viewed them as a nymphomaniac. So while men had raging sexual appetites, this was viewed as more acceptable than if a woman had it, right? So a lot of differences, things have changed. So then we go to the sexual revolution of the 1960s and the mid 1970s. It challenged the traditional codes of behavior in the US. So individual sexual self-expression and autonomy became very popular, right? So a lot of those taboo ideas about sexuality began to shift, right? So women's rights came about in the 60s, including legal abortion and dissemination of birth control, right? This is the sexual revolution. Relationship status and free love happened in the sexual revolution. Sexual orientations became more broadly accepted during the sexual revolution. Sexual education became prominent during the sexual revolution, and many traditional sexual beliefs and attitudes continue to influence Americans. Homosexuality, expressing emotional sexual attraction to individuals of the same sex or gender, commonly called gay, and some identify as queer. Among the ancient Greeks, same-sex relationships between men represented the highest form of love. In the Greek, within the Greek community, hundreds of years ago, a older, more experienced man would court a young boy with gifts, and that older male would get that young boy to experiment sexually, right? And then eventually that young boy would kind of shed off that older male and go into opposite sex or more heterosexual relationship with a woman, but he experimented with a older male, right? And this is acceptable in the Greek culture. So I don't want folks to look at it like, oh, that's strange, that's weird. We use the term sexual variation, right? And it all depends on your background, where you come from, your schema, right? So among Zambian males of New Guinea, sexual orientation was very malleable in the sense of they also experimented with same sex at a young age, right? And eventually shed that off. So bisexuality, emotional and sexual attraction to both men and women. Asexuality is low or no sexual attraction. Biology defines men and women, but culture and other factors help shape masculine and feminine. Transgender, gender expression or identity not congruent with sex assigned at birth. The two-spirit, or in the Native American tradition, a cross-gender person expresses gender in dress and work roles, but not sexual behavior, similar to the hijra in South Asian societies, considered a third gender among the Zuni and New Mexico. And for anything that I'm bringing up, this is kind of like just a brief overview. If you're more interested in this, you can go online, look at your textbook, and take a deeper dive. In some non-Western cultures, androphiliac males are attracted to and aroused by adult males and often assume roles associated with women. Gynophilia, sexual attraction to and arousal by adult females. Societal norms and sexuality. It is difficult to establish what is natural and unnatural. So learned well, cultural rules become a natural part of our personality and seem instinctive. Normal sexual behavior, behavior that conforms to a group's average or medium patterns of behavior, often used to imply healthy or moral. Stereotypes, media images, religious teachings, customs, and cultural norms don't tell us much about how people actually behave. Reproduction is one view of normal sexual behavior agreed upon by most cultures. Sexual behavior and variation. Researchers view human sexuality as characterized by sexual variation, sexual variety, and diversity. The best way to understand this diversity is as different sexual activities on a continuum from never to always. Activities thought of as defiant or abnormal, exhibitionism, voyeurism, fetishism are engaged in by most of us to some degree. We're going to take a deeper dive into that later. This is just an introduction. Standards for evaluating sexual behavior do exist. Many sexual behaviors are harmful to oneself. Masturbatory asphyxia, which is the cutting off the air supply during sex, has led to death, and to others, rape, child molestation. I've seen phone calls have led to psychological trauma, right? Sometimes even PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So sexual behavior and variations. Current psychological standards for determining the harmfulness of sexual behavior center around issues of coercion, potential harm to oneself or others, and personal distress. In this chapter, we looked at the study of human sexuality. We also explored sexuality, popular culture, and the media. We looked at sexual variation across cultures and times. We also looked at societal norms and sexuality. And this was an introduction. And you will hear me say this throughout the course. If there is a topic that I just touch on briefly, shortly, feel free to go to the internet, go to your textbook, take a deeper dive in topics that you would like to learn more about, because oftentimes you'll find that we are just scratching the surface on a particular topic, because the field of human sexuality is vast. It is far and wide. And there are so many topics from the history of human sexuality all the way on up to contemporary times, right? So again, this has been an introduction. This is chapter 1. I am Professor Alexander, and I will see you next time in chapter 2. Go back and review your notes early and often, because they will help you on tests.